What's up, fellas? In the first video of the day, we're going to be talking about LaMarcus Aldridge, his sudden and unfortunate retirement from the NBA, what that means for the Nets, talk about his career as a whole, just kind of do a LaMarcus Aldridge video here. I feel like that is just kind of the right thing to do here. I have some thoughts about him, his career, what it means for the Nets, his retirement as a whole, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And in the second video of the day, by the way, we're going to be talking about the Bulls and what has just turned into a really unfortunate situation for them with Zach LaVine now going to be missing a couple of games, kind of where they're at. So that's kind of the schedule for the day. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's a great place for the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If you're new here, by the way, what's up? My name is Tucker. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, and you can check me out at various socials in a Linktree link down in the description below. With all those things said, let's talk about LaMarcus Aldridge. So I'm just sitting around yesterday, hanging out, or maybe it was the day before at this point. Regardless, I get a notification on my phone, and Sham says, LaMarcus Aldridge has retired from the NBA. I'm sitting there like, okay. And my first thought is, was he not happy with his role in Brooklyn? Are there too many big guys? Like, what could have caused LaMarcus Aldridge to go from not being traded to being bought out to deciding to go to Brooklyn to playing a good amount in Brooklyn to having a relatively significant role to then not wanting to play anymore? And I'm just sitting there thinking, it's like, I'm very confused. This is odd. Like, dude, don't just retire in the middle of the year, especially on a team that ideally has championship aspirations. And then the second tweet comes through, and it's a medical thing for LaMarcus Aldridge. He played his last game with a regular heartbeat, got it checked out, and ultimately just decided this is something that he needs to prioritize over basketball. And the obvious answer to that is, of course, that's the correct thing to do, right? Whether it be in a regular heartbeat, an enlarged heart, whatever the case may be, basketball specifically has a past of players at every level, just collapsing on the floor as a result of some kind of heart issue. And so it obviously makes total sense for LaMarcus Aldridge to hang it up and say, hey, this is just not for me anymore. I'm not willing to risk my health, to play basketball. And I think all of that is 100% fair. And then briefly, we'll kind of get into what this means for the Nets, and then we'll talk about LaMarcus Aldridge's career as a whole. But the obvious initial reaction to this is prioritize your health, and hopefully LaMarcus Aldridge, gets healthy and gets whatever he needs to, figure it out and lives a long, healthy life. For the Nets specifically, it is a little bit weird because you go from, trying to figure out this front court rotation, and you're trying to add pieces because it's definitely a weakness, and you're moving pieces around, you're getting guys acclimated, then all of a sudden one of the guys you were getting acclimated is just gone, albeit fairly. It makes total sense for him to be gone. Now you're back to, okay, what are we doing with Blake? What are we doing with Claxton? What are we doing with DeAndre Jordan? And obviously, you have plenty of options, certainly more options than you used to have after you traded away Jared Allen. And as we saw when they played Embiid the other night, maybe DeAndre Jordan is someone that gets the start against some of the, more post-driven bigs in the league like Embiid. And then in other matchups, it's either Claxton or it's, Blake Griffin, whatever the case may be. And Aldridge was always going to provide that scoring punch, to punish guys in the post and be able to shoot a little bit in the mid-range. That isn't necessarily something that's irreplaceable. It's just a little bit odd to go from, let's get this guy adjusted, let's get him acclimated, he's going to be a part of the team, to he's not there anymore. Granted, as I said, not only do they have other bigs on the roster that can help them with that, but they now have another roster spot as well to go out and get someone else if that's something that they feel like they need to do in the front court to kind of plan against potential injury issues to any of the three bigs that they are currently using. It's still something that they're obviously trying to figure out amongst just a constant mismatch of trying to figure out who goes where in this Brooklyn lineup with guys missing games left and right. And as I mentioned in a video the other day, it's a concern of mine that they've had to switch things around so much. And hopefully everybody gets healthy within a few weeks of the postseason and they can start to build some chemistry together with this group. Because it's certainly concerning that whether it's the Aldridge thing, whether it's KD, Harden, Kyrie, like just everybody being so in and out makes me nervous. And hopefully they can kind of get that sorted out. Now for Aldridge as a whole, let's talk about his career. He retires just barely short, like 50 points short of 20,000 career points, which is no small accomplishment. And within his 2006 draft class, albeit not necessarily an overly strong draft class, one that includes him, Paul Millsap, Kyle Lowry, Rajon Rondo, Andrea Bargnani went number 1 in that draft, as Aldridge went 2. He ranks first in points, rebounds, and minutes. And I think what I'll remember LaMarcus Aldridge for in terms of his NBA career was just his consistency. He was always there. He was always someone that was going to be able to score, be pretty close to 20 and 10 most years. And, even towards the tail end of some of the San Antonio stuff was in contention for an all-star selection. It's the consistency, it's the relative uniqueness of his game, especially the further on his career went. It's harder and harder to find players that play the way LaMarcus Aldridge does, as one of the more devastating mid-range scorers in the league and a post scorer at the same time. And even though, there were years people tried to push him all the way out to the three-point line, it always seemed like there was a bit of resistance to that, and ultimately his comfort level was, in the mid-range with, great touch and scoring around the basket as well. And so it's that consistency, but it's also when you go back and think about some of the Portland teams that he was on, and again, how he was just kind of that consistent force, even when a lot of other stuff around him was kind of falling apart. They had really, really great years in Portland, and I think they're a surprisingly consistent franchise over the years, whether it be, with the Brandon Roy era or now Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, all those guys. But I remember when I was, not like getting into basketball necessarily, but like when I started to pay a lot of attention to the NBA, I was like, is there something wrong in Portland? Like, is there something in the water? Because these dudes always get hurt, whether it was the Roy stuff, whether it was Greg Oden, whether it was CJ McCollum breaking his foot early on in his career. It was like, what is going on here? And no matter what was happening around LaMarcus Aldridge, he was there, he was consistent, and he was putting up 20 and 10. And ultimately, when he decided to leave, everybody kind of understood it. They got it. They're like, hey, you want to go somewhere else? You're tired of things kind of all being on your shoulders. San Antonio is a fantastic organization to go to, and he had a lot of success there. Even though at the time, I remember Phoenix, I think, was another team that tried to make a big run in free agency at getting LaMarcus Aldridge. Ultimately decided to go to San Antonio. What I also just think about, like, how good those Portland teams could have been had Brandon Roy been able to stay healthy in the long term. Although at the time he was drafted, people kind of knew that he only had a handful of years in the league, as grim as that is to say. And then, of course, the Greg Oden injury stuff. That would have been such a fun front court as well. And by the time everything, I guess, fell apart, or by the time Aldridge left, then they finally got the Damian Lillard thing turned around, and it just never quite worked out for him in Portland. But in terms of a guy that was just a professional, was consistent at every stop along the way, that was LaMarcus Aldridge. And so someone asked me the question the other day, they're like, do you think that they should retire Aldridge's jersey in Portland? I was like, yeah, I don't see any reason not to. Anytime you're leading your draft class in minutes, points, and rebounds, anytime you bring the level of consistency that you did, and again, I have of anything that I remember about those Portland teams, it was just like, man, they just can't catch a break. Like, they're good, they're talented, and then someone gets hurt, and this guy gets hurt, and this guy's missing games. And it's like, man, they really can't figure it out. And then obviously, Aldridge in San Antonio was a weird situation, because it was like, you never really thought of San Antonio as like a free agency team, right? And then they go out and get him, and it kind of bridges the gap, and it's just, all in all, he's just always there. You know what I mean? And I think there's something to be said for the level of consistency that he brought to the table, because I think oftentimes we think about, being an NBA player and being a professional athlete as an easy thing to do. And there are certainly plenty of positives. I'm not here to tell you that their lives are horrible, but I will say that the level of consistency required in terms of the travel, in terms of the pressure on you to produce at the highest level, in terms of the physical demands on your body, I think is something that not a lot of us fully understand how difficult that is or can be. And so anytime you do see a player that was as consistent as Aldridge was, from a year-to-year basis, that's something that needs to be appreciated. And as I said, obviously the priority here now moving forward is just that he is healthy, that he's good to go. And I doubt anybody else have, no issues whatsoever with, the fact that he did decide to hang it up and he did decide to retire. I'll be interested to see if the Nets do look to replace him in the front court with this open roster spot, or if they go to get someone on the wing, potentially as a shooter. I'm not really sure what the options are out there, unless you think that they're going to make a last-ditch effort for someone like Austin Rivers, who I swore already signed in Milwaukee. But then I'm getting rumors the other day about him possibly going to Denver. I don't know. Maybe I'm just confused. Maybe the Bucks cut him. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not quite up to date on my Austin Rivers news. But regardless, at the end of the day, we'll see kind of what Brooklyn does. It is a bit weird to have to replace a guy like that in the middle of the year because of retirement, but I respect it. I understand it. And this was just kind of a LaMarcus Aldridge, thank you. It was a great career. It's super fun to see you in the league, and just get healthy. You know what I mean? That's kind of all I want to say here in this video. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think of Aldridge's career. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer? Do you think he's a guy that the Blazers should be retiring his jersey? What do you think about him? Do you think that the Nets are going to go out and get someone in the front court, on the wing? What do you think the Nets need with this now open roster spot as a result of Aldridge leaving? All that good stuff. Let me know down in the comment section below. But that is going to be the end of the first video of the day, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. As I said, later today, we're going to be talking about the Bulls, kind of some doom and gloom around them. It looks like they might not even make the postseason. Zach LaVine's going to be missing a couple of games. Of course, they owe their future pick to Orlando. All that stuff is going to be covered in the second video of the day, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, as I said in the beginning, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Friday, a good start to your weekend, and I will see you all next time.